Hello and welcome to my presentation on parallels to Jesus in The Lord of the Rings. J.R. Tolkien, the author of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and C.S. Lewis, the author of the Chronicles of Narnia, were close friends, and they both wrote literature that was in some way consistent with their Christian faith. C.S. Lewis chose explicit analogy. His lion Aslan corresponds to Jesus. This is even stated in one of the later volumes. Tolkien considered this too blunt and too obtrusive. He said he preferred applicability to allegory, and in his novels we find subtle symbolism instead. In The Lord of the Rings, attributes of Jesus are distributed among several of the protagonists in an unobtrusive way, so that the readers can decide for themselves if they want to draw that connection or not. We have Gandalf, Galadriel, Tom Bombadil, who doesn't feature in the films, Frodo and Sam, but most of all Aragorn and Arwen, and I will focus on those two. Beginning with Aragorn, I will take his most important titles and names as starting points to show similarities to Jesus. So we have Strider, Estelle, meaning hope, Isildur's heir, Elessar, and Aragorn. There are more names listed here that I won't go into. Also note that Jesus has a huge number of different names and titles. It would be interesting to compare them to Aragorn's, but that would fill a whole presentation in itself. So let's start with Strider. This means someone who strides or walks with long steps, a name given to him by men who do not know him and mostly look down upon him. It refers to him being one of the rangers traveling around, living a lowly life under disguise where his kingship is not recognized. The same holds true for Jesus. The first 30 years of his life he led a humble existence as a carpenter, and then he became an outcast, traveling around without a home, like a vagabond, so exactly like a strider. He says of himself, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." Also, he had to keep his true identity hidden for a long time, even during his public ministry, and when he revealed it, he was not believed by most people, and even killed for his claim. Even today, none of us comprehend his true value, and he isn't welcome in many places. It is painful not to be recognized in your real identity, not to be seen in your true beauty. In Lord of the Rings, we see that Aragorn is unhappy about being misjudged. "But I must admit," he added with a queer laugh, "that I hoped you would take to me for my own sake. A hunted man sometimes wearies of distrust and longs for friendship. But there, I believe my looks are against me." Jesus, too, is longing for his true beauty to be seen by us, the ones he loves. This is shown in a prayer of his in John 17:24. He prayed this before he went to the cross, where he would be especially disfigured and marred. "Father, I want those you have given me to be with me where I am, and to see my glory." Also splendor, brightness, beauty, excellence, majesty and perfection, that's all in the Greek word used here. "The glory you have given me because you loved me before the creation of the world." Then we have the name Estelle, the Elvish word for hope. Aragorn was raised incognito under this name in Rivendell. His father was killed by orcs when Aragorn was 2 years old, so Elrond became his foster father. He gave him the name Estelle to shield the child from persecution, and only revealed Aragorn's true name and identity to him when he was 21 years old. Similarly, Jesus was raised by a stepfather and hunted from an early age on, so that his family had to flee to Egypt to escape Herod's soldiers who were ordered to kill the child. Also, his real identity was probably not revealed to him until later in his life, and he led a humble life as successor to his stepfather's trade until the age of 30. The title Estel, hope, can certainly be applied to Jesus as well, as many of the Old Testament prophecies show. For example, Isaiah, "The people living in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death a light has dawned. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." The concept of Estel in Elvish comprised a range of meanings: hope, trust, faith, a temper of mind steady and fixed in purpose, difficult to dissuade and unlikely to fall into despair or abandon its purpose. This same determination can be seen in the servant songs in Isaiah, prophecies about Jesus, for instance in Isaiah 42. "Here is my servant whom I uphold, my chosen one, in whom I delight. I will put my spirit on him, and he will bring justice to the nations. He will not shout or cry out, or raise his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. In faithfulness he will bring forth justice. He will not falter or be discouraged till he establishes justice on earth. In his name the islands will put their hope." Again, there are similarities between the many Old Testament prophecies about Jesus and the Riddle of Strider, which was composed by Bilbo after Aragorn had told him his story. "All that is gold does not glitter, not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither, deep roots are not reached by the frost. From the ashes a fire shall be woken, a light from the shadows shall spring. Renewed shall be blade that was broken, the crownless again shall be king." So here we have this concept of living incognito on earth and wandering around without a permanent home. Also the concept of an unbreakable core that survives all suffering and hardship. This even held true for Jesus on the cross, because his integrity could never be broken. It also holds true for us, because he shares his victory with us, so all these dimensions are ours too. We find death and resurrection in various forms in the second stanza, arranged chiastically: hope for despair, restoration of the broken, on the one hand servanthood and even powerlessness, on the other hand supreme kingship. The parallels between Jesus and Aragorn become quite apparent in this poem. Next, we have a very important title of Aragorn's, Isildur's Heir. This corresponds to Jesus' title, Son of Man. Here we have two dimensions. First, Jesus can empathize with mankind because of being human himself. This compassionate attitude can be seen in Aragorn at Boromir's death. Boromir accuses himself, "I have failed you all," but Aragorn does not condemn him for his mistake or sin or tragic flaw, his wrong decision. Instead, he comforts him. "You fought bravely, you have kept your honor." He focuses on Boromir's strength, not his weakness. The term that is so important to Boromir when Aragorn says, "our people, I will not let our people fail," shows how Jesus identifies with humans, takes up their cause and fights their fights, like a brother, captain, king, which are actually Boromir's next words. "Be at peace, son of Gondor," means every fault is forgiven, and I will take care of your concerns and complete what you could not. This "be at peace" is a near quote of what Jesus told people after he had healed them or assured them of forgiveness. For example, when the woman with continual bleeding had touched the hem of his garment. Another similar instance to Borromeus would be Jesus' way of treating the adulteress the Pharisees wanted to stone. He who is without sin among you, let him be the first to throw a stone at her. And then to her, Woman, where are they? Did no one condemn you? I do not condemn you either. Go, meaning continue on your journey through life. Be at peace, the matter is settled, forgiven. From now on, be free from a life of sin, which is more a benediction than a command. Satan is the accuser, that's a literal translation from the Hebrew, but he has never been a human. Jesus has, and he can empathize with how difficult it is to live as human. He is called the second Adam, and here we come to the second dimension of the title Isildur's heir. Aragorn was subjected to the same temptation as Isildur, but he passed the test and brought the line of kings to a fulfillment of its potential. Similarly, Jesus was subjected to every temptation and resisted them all, so he can restore mankind to its true glory and kingship. Aragorn refusing to take the ring of power can be compared to Jesus resisting the temptation of power when Satan tempted him in the desert. Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, where for 40 days he was tempted by the devil. The devil led him up to a high place and showed him in an instant all the kingdoms of the world. And he said to him, I will give you all their authority and splendor or power or renown. It has been given to me, and I can give it to anyone I want to. If you worship me, it will all be yours. Jesus answered, It is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Of course, Jesus wants the kingdoms of the world. That is, he wants humanity, our hearts, but he would never choose the way of power. Unlike the enemy, Sauron or the devil, Jesus does not want to own us as slaves who are forced to belong to him. Although he desires us, he would never rape us. He would never use the ring to make us his. Instead, he chooses the way of voluntary love. Our free will is sacred to him, so he chose to win our hearts by his beauty and love, by going with us into the very fires of Mordor. That's what he did on the cross. For each person, he carried their personal burden to Mordor, to the cross, and died their death to destroy their personal ring. At the same time, he respects our voluntary choice. Aragorn says, I would have gone with you. He doesn't go with Frodo into Mordor because he respects Frodo's free will, but he tries to help him in other ways, by distracting Sauron and sacrificing his life for that. So what about Jesus? Does he go with us to Mordor if we don't ask him to? If we go there alone, for whatever reason? To round off section 1, I will explore this question with an illustration from my life. When I was going through severe traumatic experiences as a teenager, I did not know Jesus and was not ready for him directly back then. So it felt like I was going through Mordor alone. Later, in my late 30s, when I was in a close relationship with Jesus, we revisited those traumatic memories of the past, where I thought he had left me alone and not been there to help me. However, he showed me that he had actually gone with me to Mordor, but in disguise, indirectly, as Aragorn. Lord of the Rings was one of the escape worlds that helped me to survive, so Jesus was there somehow, incognito. But when we revisited the memories, he was there directly, as the Son of God, who died all my deaths with me and shares his resurrection with me, for every death a resurrection, so he could bring healing and closure. Because he is above time, when we say yes to him, we can go back with him in time, and where it seemed before that he wasn't there, we now witness that he is there. Thank you for watching. This is the end of part 1.